It's a woman's world. We are always so honored that you join us and listen to all the conversations that we talk about that are concerning, guess what? Women. And so, of course, we have a panel of beautiful women, and we have someone who is going to talk about some things that I think is going to interest you. First, let's start with Nadia Giordana. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you, Jamela. It's exciting to be here today. I'm interested very much in the rainforests and what we can share and learn today about that subject.
Very nice. I am as well. And second, we have Barbara Lavalier. How are you, Barbara?
I'm great, Jamila, and what an honor it is to be here today. I'm so excited to ask questions to Laura. As an international photojournalist, I'm always asking questions, so I have a few prepared.
I love that. Yes, you always have great questions. And certainly, last but not least, Candy Pettiford. Candy, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good because I'm inside. It's 90 something outside. And so probably, Laura, I'm going to ask you, does it get 100 and something in, the Amazon? So probably one of those questions to ask. So I'm glad I'm inside.
And please welcome Laura, our guest. We are excited to have you here. You have written a book about the rainforest. And we as women, we are interested in world issues, not just things that are happening locally here. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your book and just start things off for us, would you? And of course, I'm Jamela Pettiford. I forgot that part. I am the host, Jamela Pettiford, and welcome, Laura. Welcome, everybody. Laura, would you start us off with your beautiful book that you wrote?
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Jamela. I am really grateful and I'm honored to be here and really looking forward to our conversation. So a little bit about me. I live in Colorado and I have written 10 books for kids and teens. Many of them have international settings, and I've lived abroad myself as an ESL teacher and an anthropologist in Mexico, which is where I learned Spanish. And so I love having kind of interesting global settings in my book, in all my books. And so this most recent one was co-authored by an Indigenous woman from the Amazon named Patricia Walinga. It is actually available in Spanish too. So we co-authored this book together, and it is about how her community in the rainforest of Ecuador protected their sacred forest home from an invading oil company. So how they worked together, they united with other indigenous groups, with international organizations, and they were able to make the oil company leave their land, and they were also able to win an important landmark victory through the Inter-American Court of Human Rights that pronounced that the Ecuadorian government was in the wrong by allowing the oil companies to come in. So that was really an important victory for indigenous land rights. And so Patricia Walinga has been a really important leader, especially with Amazonian women all around the Amazon rainforest who are trying to protect their home, protect their family, protect the land that they love.
Powerful work. Powerful work. How did you meet this writer? How did you meet your co-writer? How did you come across? How did your paths cross?
That is a great question. So backing up a few years, I took a trip to the Amazon rainforest. I was familiar with Ecuador, but more with the Andes Mountains. I had co-authored another book with an indigenous Ecuadorian woman from the Andes Mountains. But I was always curious to get to know more about the Amazon rainforest. So I went there and I stayed at an eco lodge run by an indigenous Guarani group. And I loved it. We flew in on a I guess it was a 4-seater airplane. Then we took a canoe downriver. We were completely off grid, no cell, no internet. I loved it. And so my indigenous guide named Pegonka, he showed me all around the rainforest. explained the importance of all kinds of plants and animals and sacred trees to his community, his people. And so I was just fascinated by it all. And so I made a number of friends from that community. They were interested in writing their own stories. They wanted to tell about their lives. They were very interested in the fact that I was an author. So I said, okay, well, I'll come back in a year or two. I'll have all the materials ready to help you with your books. And so when I was planning to go back to, work with them and visit them again, I noticed that their community had been invaded by an oil company. So their eco lodge existed no longer. Their sacred forest home became a danger zone. They were displaced. They were just focused on how to survive. So we were never able to realize those projects and we lost touch. So it was heartbreaking for everyone in so many ways. And so then I went online and I started trying to figure out, well, what other communities have been in this position and are there any happy endings? And I noticed that Patricia Walinga's community called Sarayaku, also in the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest, that they were able to make the oil company leave. They were able to win this victory, and they ended up inspiring and working together with all these other indigenous groups, and not just in the Amazon, but around the world. And so I kept seeing Patricia Walinga's name come up, and I loved listening to her speeches. I loved reading her essays that she wrote. She talked a lot about how you need to look at the spiritual aspects as well as the ecological aspects in protecting the rainforest. And I just loved her philosophy. I loved her view. So I just took a gamble and I reached out to her and I said, is there any chance you might be interested in co-authoring this book with me? And I was completely over the moon when she said yes. I had been so nervous asking her this, but so then we partnered, and then we wrote the book together, and some other point we can get into the whole process, but that was kind of the origin story of the book and how we met.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And you have an illustrator also. And I just want to say that the illustrations are incredibly beautiful in that book. I really found myself captivated by those illustrations.
Well, can you open one of it? Can we look at one of the illustrations?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I agree. She did watercolor on paper, and she did an absolutely gorgeous job. She really put her heart into it. And what was important to me and to Patricia is that she made sure everything was authentic, culturally accurate. Her own husband is an indigenous, from an indigenous group called Shuar in the Ecuadorian Amazon. So she was very familiar with a lot of the cultural traditions, and she just really was committed to getting everything absolutely right. So we really valued her contributions. Just really, really, really gorgeous. So yeah, thank you. I will pass that compliment on to her.
Yes.
Please.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So now you went there. Did you stay with the people?
Yeah, so this was a really cool eco lodge because it was run by this indigenous group. And so they were kind of running the show. And so they had it all planned out. And my guide, Pegonka, would take me around and kind of show me how to shoot a blowgun, for example, how to special techniques for climbing tall trees to get fruit at the top. He showed me like different plants that you could use to brush your teeth, plants you could use as shampoo. It was so interesting for me to see that, when I give presentations to kids, I say it's almost like you're walking into Walmart because you can get anything that you need for daily life in the rainforest if you know where to look. So we ate piranhas from the river. We, you can bathe in the river, you can drink, all of the necessities of life can be found in the forest. And so I really got a sense of that how useful it is in everyday life to those communities, but then also the sacred nature. So he showed me a sacred kapok or ceiba tree, those trees with giant roots, and told me the mythology behind that and why that was a sacred tree for them. So I really, really kind of got a sense as we were walking around the rainforest of what was the significance of all these different plants and animals.
Laura, in preparation for having this conversation with you, I needed to brush up my information about the rainforest, which I learned decades ago, and most of which I had forgotten. And I was surprised to remember that more than half of the world's plants are found in the rainforest, but not only plants, but animals. More than half of the rainforest animals are there in the world, and the rainforest also is on every continent. I always think of Amazon, South America, when I think of rainforest. Well, we have more to learn, and I expect that some of that information is in your books. Also, when I first was looking through your website, I thought, she's written 10 books. She looks like she's about 20.
Thank you.
Wow, this woman has really, really been busy. But hearing that you have a 16-year-old son, I'm confident that this has been an ongoing process for a number of years.
I am well over 20 years old.
So I like the idea of that you kind of focus on children's books and young adult books, and I'm wondering how you came to that genre. Or those.
Yes. So I was lucky enough that my mom was an educator. She's a former educator, retired. And so she always loved books. She was always in multiple book clubs. And so she really passed that love of story on to me. We would walk to the library together, just get armfuls of books. And I would, when I was supposed to be paying attention in math class, I would be reading a book under the desk. I loved reading. And I had a wonderful librarian who knew me and knew my taste in books. So she would always put books aside for me and give them to me when I came to visit at the library. So I was really lucky to have adults in my life who really fostered love of story. And then I just started writing when I was a kid, fun stories. And I just loved it. And then I kind of noticed as I grew up and continued writing, I just noticed that the books that had the biggest impact on me as a human were the ones that I read when I was a child and a young teenager. Those are the books that changed the way I saw the world, made me think of my life differently, made me think of existence differently. And so I feel like it's such a privilege to be writing for that age group, because their minds are so open, their hearts are so open, and your words and your stories can have such a deep impact on them. So that's one big reason why I find it so rewarding to write for that age group.
And I think your book already has an award or two, does it not?
Oh, thank you. Yes, so it comes out in July. But we did get a starred review from one of the major journals, Kirkus, which was really just an unexpected delight. We're thrilled about that. And so then we also got the book selected as a Junior Library Guild selection, which is another big honor. So it's
absolutely.
So we're really happy that it's getting this nice welcome into the world.
Wonderful.
I just wanted to mention one other thing, talking about this age group. I also saw that you book school visits. So that's an interesting aspect to being an author, to presenting to schools. So I don't want to take us off into a different tangent, but I just thought that's awesome that you're doing that, because you're also educating like your mother, in addition to being an author.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I love doing school visits. I love interacting with kids who have read the books. I find it I find that they read the book like so closely and so deeply and connect with it so strongly. They ask such interesting questions, and it's fun to remember kind of how I felt at that age, feeling that magic in story and seeing that kind of same spark in the students. And so that's a really special thing about writing for kids, is that you get to interact with your audience in such an interesting way.
Absolutely.
One of the questions I wanted to ask also, when you stayed at the in the tribe or in the community, was there certain no-nos for women? Because like in certain countries, you must wear your hijab or don't show this or that. Was there some kind of things that let you know you're a woman now? Let's not go do this or do that. Give us a little something about that.
Oh, that's such an interesting question, Candy. Yeah, thank you for that. So I have a couple thoughts. So when I was there, I don't think I encountered that in a direct way. But when we were doing the book, we were really committed to getting the illustrations completely right and accurate. And so Patty, when she was going over, Patricia, we call her Patty, when she was going over kind of the sketches and the drafts, she would tell Vanessa, like, okay, well, women would not, let me show you this picture, like women would not be beating drums in a parade kind of situation. So for example, here, originally, Vanessa had wanted to do a drum, have one of the women drumming, and Patty was like, well, in my village, we don't do that. There are some other similar kinds of cultural things that women traditionally just don't do. And so none of them seem to be oppressive. It seems like more in kind of the category of, when they're making music, when they're doing some type of performance. But I thought that was really, really, really interesting. And I do remember back when I lived in Oaxaca, Mexico. So I lived in an indigenous region there. And so the indigenous group where I lived was called Mixteco. And so I spent a lot of time in Mixteco communities, just kind of getting to know people, helping them with their chores, learning how to make tortillas and helping them harvest. And so I was invited to go to a meeting of the kind of like the elders, I guess. And at that time I was in my 20s and I didn't think about it. I don't think we had chairs. I think we were kind of sitting on the ground, but I had my legs crossed, like crisscross applesauce. And my friend Sonia who I'm still friends with today, she was like, you shouldn't be sitting like that. Like people are going to get offended. So I very quickly changed my position, but it's nice to have kind of friends who will tell you this kind of thing and help guide you into doing respectful behavior. But I love that question, Candy.
Well, and I also add to that, okay, you are Caucasian. Did they kind of touch on that a little bit at all? Say, oh, you're of a different, did they kind of touch on that at all?
That's a really interesting question. I'm trying to think. I mean, clearly I was different in my physical appearance. I'm trying. I think that probably the fact that I was American kind of left probably the bigger impression than being white. It was kind of more my sense. And so I think they were just very interested when people came from another country to come and visit them. So I think kind of the novelty of that seemed to be kind of the overarching kind of conversation topic, is them wanting to know what was like in the United States.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, great question, Candy.
And as an educator myself, what I love about books that really explore the world is it helps our children to use their imagination, which is the most powerful gift that they'll ever have in life. And many times the world, they're learning world history and they're learning geography, and to be able to see a book that really touches on what's happening in real time in a different part of the world really helps our children to be imaginative and to do their own research and to really look up and study and find out so that maybe one day they could be like you, Laura. They could explore the world. They can get a chance to eat and fellowship and sleep with other cultures, to know that it isn't just the American culture that matters, that there are cultures all over the world that are vast, that are ancient, that are sacred cultures, that are really, like you said, are guardians of our sacred lands. And so I want to just ask you really quick, because we only have like about 2 minutes left, but I just wanted to ask you really quick, what is your objective when you are reaching to the children, when you are writing the book, when you are going in, when you're putting together the illustrations, when you're cultivating and making sure that's authentic and honoring of the people, of the culture, of the land? What is your objective when you put this in the hand of American children? When you put these books in the hands of children themselves, what is your objective? What would you like to see?
Mhm. That's such an interesting question. And I think when I first started writing and publishing books, I just felt more like I had these stories welling up inside me and I wanted to tell them. But as I've been able to continue on this writer's journey and get feedback from kids, and sometimes like I get emails from young adults who read my books when they were kids, and they tell me how the book affected their life. I get emails like, oh, I decided I was going to live abroad and be an ESL teacher. I decided I was going to, save money to travel to these places. So it's really, I realized, wow, like the books are having a really big impact in all kinds of ways I never expected at first. And so that's a really amazing feeling as an author. And so this book specifically, for example, Patty and I really wanted to give kids a sense of what is life like as a kid in the Amazon rainforest, and what's the relationship like with the forest around you, the sacred aspects of that relationship, and really having kids feel like, wow, how does it feel when your home gets invaded? And how can you work together to protect what you care deeply about? So a lot of the messages have to do with finding the courage to stand up, to unite with other people for a common mission, and to ultimately protect what you love so deeply. And I can, if I have a minute, I would love to read something that Patty said about what she sees as the message of our book. She says, sorry. So Patricia says, I think that with this book, we have managed to capture in some way the essence of the struggles of Indigenous peoples and our lives. For me, this book is something like a spark of inspiration that we share with other communities around the world.
That's lovely. Jamela, I have a question for you.
Sure.
As when I was you're an educator, and when
Yes.
I was in school, which was a while ago, there was virtually, other than maybe in the library, if I chose to dig it out myself, some information about the rainforest, but I don't recall ever finding it. Did you find in the schools are the children getting that kind of information about the rainforest? Is that happening in a regular curriculum, or is that just something when an enlightened teacher happens to share with the children?
I think it's something that an enlightened teacher would share with the children. That's why Laura's book is so timely, partly because our children are limited to the educator's vastness and imagination. Many times I'm noticing in our school systems, they have a set curriculum that they are set to teach based upon what the district's allowance for certain informations, is to be taught, and so they can reach certain test scores and to pass certain markers. And so with the rainforest, they'll hear about it in various slight ways. However, I don't know to what extent they are really exhausting the information as far as the tribes, the cultures, the people, the land, and the reasons why we want to save the rainforest. Now, I know maybe in some earth science, they might be learning why the rainforest is so important for us to save and for us to really keep the richness and the authenticity of the land, the trees, the earth. But no, our young people, unfortunately, are really at the mercy of the district and the teachers and who is in front of them. And if we have someone in front of them that is very, square and keeps it straight to what it is that they are teaching, then they are lacking in many of the beautifulness that our dear Laura just shared with us. So I know for myself growing up, I know Candy might mention this, but growing up, we as a family, we talked about the rainforest, but it was sparked by a movie called The Emerald Forest, and which was a powerful movie that really showed us a young Caucasian boy getting lost in the forest and being taken by invisible people, and they raised him as their own. And in that movie, much like what Laura was talking about in her book, they were cutting down the rainforest and they were destroying all of the natural resources that were there. And I just remember having these conversations at home. Why would they do that? What was the purpose of cutting down the rainforest and doing the things that they were doing? And so I remember being inquisitive because the movie really sparked those thoughts, those ideas. And it really was an intricate story about beautiful people who lived powerfully, naturally, and untouched by, the outside world until the folks came with bulldozers and cut down trees and uprooted animals, the beautiful, vast animals that Barbara was talking about. So it does take.
I found that book when I was a kid. I read it twice. It was
Such a good book.
book.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just an incredible book that really, again, opens up your imagination for you to say, wow, and it begins to matter to you. It begins to be tangible. It begins to be something that is no longer abstract, but something it's a real thing, the rainforest. So education really is up to the educator. And the hope is that the educator has things that matter that are not just present in their world and circumference, but the vastness and the beautiful vastness of our entire world. If an educator is inspired in that way, then the children are inspired to learn. And guess what? They do. And they'll stand as tall as the tree. Well, as you know, it is our duty to bring you not only to the things that are happening here, but all around the world, because we want you to stand as tall as the trees. And thank you for taking us on this journey through the rainforest and all of the different ways that the world matters. Well, it is truly a woman's world, and we look forward to seeing you part 1, part 2 of this great conversation. Come back again. We'll see you next time.